Hello crafters! Today I have a fun little crochet project that is great for fall decor and it also works really well for Christmas decor. Today we're making quick and easy crochet pine cones. Alright, let's jump into the tutorial. For the sake of this tutorial, I'm going to be using some Vanish's Choice yarn and a 3.75mm hook. Feel free to use whatever yarn you want and just use the corresponding hook size. This is a bit small of a hook for the Vanish's Choice yarn, but that's just because I felt like working this one a little bit tightly. To begin this project, we're going to need a foundation chain. I'm going to put a slip knot on my hook and then start chaining. For the sake of this tutorial, I'm going to chain 40 chain stitches. However, if you want to make a bigger pine cone, you can chain more. If you want to make a smaller pine cone, you can chain less. The important thing is you want to crochet an even number of chain stitches, and every 2 chain stitches will be one of the fins on the pine cone. Each one of these will use up 2 chains. So in my case, because I'm using 40 chain stitches, that's going to create 20 fins. There's a different word. I don't know why fins is the only word I'm coming up with. So I'm going to start by chaining 40. Here is my 40 chain foundation chain, and now we're ready to work the 1 row of the pine cone. Fortunately, this is a 1 row pattern. When we work this, we don't want to work in the V's of the chain. We want to work in the back bumps, the back little nubs on the back of the chain. Now for this project, we're going to use some alternative turning chains. I'll link to some videos explaining more about that. I'm going to show you the steps here, but it's a way to replace the turning chain, and those videos I link will provide more information and show more of the benefits of the alternative turning chain. But what we want to do is in the back nub of our very first chain here, first chain from the hook, we want to work an alternative turning chain. The way I'm going to do this is I'm going to insert my hook underneath the back nub of the chain. Then I'm going to yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2. That's the first step, and basically it's like we've worked a single crochet into the back nub. Now I'm going to stack a second single crochet on top of this one to finish up the alternative turning chain. What I'm going to do is find the left vertical strand of that first essentially single crochet I worked, insert underneath it from right to left, and then work another single crochet there by yarning over, pulling up a loop, yarning over, and pulling through 2. That's an alternative turning chain. We're going to use this throughout the project, but I'll show it to you again as we go along. Once I've worked an alternative turning chain, I want to then work a double crochet in that same exact spot. So in that same back nub of our first chain, and work that double crochet. Next, I'm going to chain 3, 1, 2, and 3, and go back to that same spot, insert my hook, and slip stitch. And then go to the next chain, the back nub, and work a slip stitch. That's how we go ahead and get started. Now the rest of the way, there's going to be a repeating pattern. Here's how the repeating pattern works. We're going to start by slip stitching in the back nub of the next chain. So inserting and pulling through everything, that's my slip stitch. Now I'm going to work in the same spot an alternative turning chain. So insert my hook, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2. So essentially like working a single crochet. Find the left vertical strand of what we just worked, insert underneath it from right to left, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2 to complete that alternative turning chain. Then in the same spot, I'm going to work a double crochet. So in that same back nub where we did a slip stitch in the alternative turning chain, then I'm going to chain 3, 1, 2, and 3, and in the same spot, work a slip stitch. The last thing I need to do is go to my next nub of the next chain, and in that back nub, work a slip stitch. So that whole thing is what we're going to repeat, and it gets worked across 2 chains. I'll show it to you again. I'm going to go a little faster this time. In the next chain, work a slip stitch. In that same chain, work an alternative turning chain. So it's essentially like stacking up 2 single crochet stitches. So that's my alternative turning chain. Still in the same spot, work a double crochet. And try not to split your yarn like I did. Then chain 3, 1, 2, 3, and in that same spot, work a slip stitch. And the last thing we need to do to finish up the repeating pattern is put a slip stitch into the back nub of our next chain. And that's what I'm going to keep repeating all the way along. It's going to create these little nubs, these fins. I can't think of the right word for them. I'm sure I'll figure it out when I'm editing or when someone comments. I'll be like, oh yeah. And I'm going to work this all the way down. Just keep repeating this. So I've been working the repeating pattern all the way along my chain. I've only got 2 more chain stitches left, which means I have to repeat the pattern one more time. I'll show it to you again. So in the next stitch, work a slip stitch in the back chain nub, then put an alternative turning chain into that same back nub where we just worked our slip stitch. So this is the second single crochet getting stacked on top of it. In the same spot, work a double crochet, then chain 3, 1, 2, and 3, slip stitch in that same spot, and then to finish it all up, slip stitch in the very last chain stitch. Once you do that, it's time to fasten off. When you fasten off, leave a very nice long tail because we're going to need this to turn this weird little curlicue thing into a pine cone. To assemble, we're going to want a tapestry needle and we're going to put it on the very long tail here. What I want to do is I want to curl this up. It already tends to have a curl to it, but I want to curl it up and stack it up so it has a nice pine cone look. Now listen, this is a sewing thing. I really hate sewing. I'm not very good at it. So if I'm able to pull this off, you guys can pull it off too. And here's the thing, there's not really a right or wrong way to do it. Just get it to look something like a pine cone. When you're happy with it, hold it in place. The one thing I would mention is try to not stack up all the little nubs exactly. Like try to see how that looks a little strange. Try to offset them a little bit. That'll give better results. But once I've got it stacked and looking kind of like a pine cone, I'm just going to hold it together and I'm going to take my long tail that I've got on my needle and I'm going to stab it down through all these layers, come out the bottom. So that time I kind of went like over here. So now I want to go back up to the top and go up on like a different section of the pine cone. So maybe like over here. And go up to the top. Pull it on through. As you do this, you can pull it tight if you want to. I want to pull it too tight though, because it can kind of shrink your pine cone too much. And then one more time, go back down to the bottom. Again, trying to work through a different section just so that way everything stays connected together really nicely. Again, don't pull it too tight. All right, now that I've got that at the bottom, I'm going to leave that be. Now I'm going to take my needle and put it on the little tail from the beginning and run this tail on down to the bottom of my pine cone, out near the long tail. Now I've got my 2 tails here together. I'm just going to knot them off a couple times to secure everything. Depending on what you're making, you might want a little tail on the bottom to tie it onto something. I don't know what I'm going to do with this pine cone. I'm just going to cut the tails short. You, of course, can weave them in. I'm just feeling kind of lazy at the moment. But just like that, you have yourself a cute, simple pine cone. So here you go. This is a simple crochet pine cone. I like how each one seems to turn out unique just based on how it gets sewn together. But these make great filler for projects. If you want to make some kind of crochet garland or wreath, these would be super cute on those. And even if you just feel like crocheting a pine cone because you want to crochet a pine cone, it's great for that too. I hope y'all enjoyed. Thanks so much for watching, and I will catch you next time. All right, before y'all go, I have a fun video that I'm going to be posting on Thanksgiving. It's going to be a little bit different. It's very art themed. It's not quite tutorial. It's kind of just me exploring something, and then also it's going to be a bit vloggy in the sense that I'm just going to voice over and chat throughout the whole thing. So when you're stuffed full of turkey next week, be sure to keep an eye out for that video, and I look forward to sharing it with you guys.